Today we are gonna make banana bread, and we're gonna make it in a really fun way. We're gonna make it in a 2-quart sauce pot. And this is gonna go straight in the oven. I love this trick because it comes out round and sort of crisped on all sides, and it sort of looks like a cake. It could be a birthday cake or a banana bread. It could be a birthday cake disguised as banana bread. Okay, this is really easy. Gonna go pretty quickly. So let's see. First thing we need is a stick of butter. And I've had this sitting out at room temperature, so it's quite soft. Probably takes about, I don't know, maybe half an hour to get it to begin to be soft, and then a couple hours, of course, it's gonna be really soft. I'm gonna take this extra butter here, and I'm gonna use that to grease the inside of the saucepan. And that's gonna make it easy for our banana bread to come out. So the first thing I'm doing, I'm taking a fork. I'm gonna do this all by hand, so you don't need a blender. I take the back of my fork and I'm just blending that down. Now you can see that this butter was so soft that it's just happening so quickly and so easily. Sometimes if your butter's harder, you're really gonna have to work that, but just keep working it till it gets nice and sort of whipped, looking like that. You can also use the back of a bigger spoon, that works well too. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm putting in the sugar. And instead of sugar, I'm using 3/4 of a cup of honey. This is good for your biceps. Cooking is a workout. I once actually saw somebody did a thing where they actually showed you how many calories it took to make a certain dish. And I thought that was really interesting. If you're worried about calories, then you can burn them off while you're cooking and then you can eat them back. Okay, so I'm getting this 3/4 of a cup of honey in here. And then I'm just gonna cream these together. So I loved your comments. I love my Hatch and Change community. Thank you guys for watching. I know you can't please everybody all the time. There's definitely some vegetarians and vegans out there that don't love when I work with the pork or the fish or the lamb. But then some of you really like the meat dishes. So I'm trying to give you a little bit of both. I did mention to somebody that I was gonna make chocolate chip banana bread, that of course is vegetarian, not vegan, but vegetarian. And so that's what this is. Once I have my sugar all mixed with my butter, all blended together nicely, then I can move on to the next step. So I'm gonna use 2 eggs, and I'm just gonna go ahead and use the same measuring cup that I was using for the honey. So I've got 1 egg, got my second egg, and use the same fork. I'm just gonna scramble those, beat those up a little bit. And then that is going in. So again, I'm just gonna gently stir all of these ingredients just until they get all blended. And I've really made this easy on myself because I let the butter really get to room temperature, so it's so soft that this is just no effort to get this all to blend together. But it might be a little bit harder for you if your butter isn't at room temperature. So the next liquid thing I'm gonna put in there, sort of liquid, I've measured out here 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. If you are allergic to peanuts, you can totally leave this part out. I just like the depth of flavor that it adds to the banana bread. So 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. And I try to use organic peanut butter. You don't need to get a peanut butter that has any added sugar. You won't need it, so try to find a peanut butter. In fact, peanut butter is one of those, it's like yogurt. It's one of those things that you sort of think is good for you, but depending on the brand, they really can sneak in a lot of extra sugars. I'm just using the back of my fork, or yeah, it is the back of my fork. You could use the back of your spoon to just push all these ingredients together. I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla I actually have a bourbon vanilla flavoring, because who doesn't want bourbon and bananas? I mean, that's a perfect combination. Ooh, that smells good. So that's just getting mixed around in there. The next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add some maple syrup. I just like that flavor. It's like bourbon, maple. Okay, I'm gonna do 3 teaspoons, which, who can tell me what is the measurement of 3 teaspoons? I heard you, it's 1 tablespoon. So 3 teaspoons equals 1 tablespoon. So if you want to use another measuring tool and dirty 2 things, go right ahead and get your tablespoon measure, or you can do 3 teaspoons of maple syrup. Okay. A lot of you guys wanted close-ups of the food. And I'm not sure if you understand that I'm filming all of this by myself in my house, but this is a close-up of what our butter and sugar and eggs looks like before we add the flour. So I have my cup of flour, a teaspoon of salt. I'm adding a teaspoon of baking powder. And now I'm going to begin to just put that in, maybe probably in sections of 3. So put in about 1/3 of it, and then I'm just going to start to work that all together. Pretty easy so far, right? All right, now I'm going to do the next little section of flour. So banana bread is really one of my favorite things to make because it can be dessert, it can be breakfast with coffee if you're in a rush to get out the door. I feel like everyone likes a good banana bread. This particular one, when you do it in the pan like this, especially if you ice the top with either whipped cream or an icing, it honestly can double for a birthday cake. All right, we're gonna put the rest of the flour in now. So now we're done with that. And once we get this all blended up, the last thing we're gonna put in is the bananas and the chocolate. So one of my favorite things in my freezer are frozen rotten bananas. If you bought a bunch of bananas and then you went out of town and forgot about them, or you just didn't get around to eating them and they turned to look like this, you can just throw them in your freezer and use them later. You can also really mess up a burglar. I was gonna swear, but you know, I'm trying not to do that. Wow, okay, yeah, that hurts. Don't do that to your friend. Frozen bananas can be a weapon. I think I wrote about that actually in my book Burnt Toast. Go look it up. But if you let your frozen banana thaw and then you just peel it open, it will just kind of fall right out. There, see, banana peel empty. Gonna go in the garbage. Or these were fresh. These never really made it to be weapons in my freezer. They were just getting browned, so I stuck them in the refrigerator, and I knew I was gonna make banana bread, and so now they're going to use. So you want 3 very ripe, overly ripe. I mean, you can see when I say rotten, well, this is actually still looking pretty good. Like, I would eat this banana. But they can be very mushy, very browned, the kind of bananas you probably wouldn't want to put in a fruit salad or serve or just eat, you know, while you're monkeying around. See what I did there? So now it's very good that I have a fork, and I'm just gonna keep kind of mushing this up along the side until I can get these mashed. The riper they are, the softer they're gonna be, the easier they're gonna mush up. Now, when I do my banana bread, the reason I actually like not doing it in a blender and doing it by hand is because I don't really want these bananas to get pureed. I like, once it gets baked, you end up, when you slice the bread, you end up with, you know, just kind of these little chunks of banana, and it's actually really pleasant to eat that way. I think it looks pretty. So I'm just looking to mash down the really, really big bites. Got my bananas. in there, and it's quite wet. You can see it's quite wet. Depending on the size of your bananas, you might have to add a little bit more flour, but you do want it to be wet like this. And the last thing is going to be the chocolate. I don't know if anybody noticed what I'm wearing here. Oh, look, that says Star Baker. Are you guys watching the Great British Bake Off? It's so good. Oh, just love that show. It was such an honor to get to cook in that tent. I had so much fun. Okay, so I have, you could use dark chocolate chips, but I like to use raw dark chocolate. I find a chocolate that has minimal extra sugar. I think the bitterness of the chocolate will be really good in this. If I'm using a chocolate bar like this is a fun part. I use the back of my juicer, and I get out any aggressions I have. You know, maybe based on the news, or somebody cutting you off on the freeway. Actually, that doesn't even bother me. I always let everybody in. Or anything else that might have happened to you that is worthy of smashing a chocolate bar with a juicer. Now is your excuse. And now we're gonna open this puppy up. See what kind of damage I did. Oh yeah. Whoops. Little perfect little chunks. All sort of different sizes. So that's going in. And then those just get, kind of just cut those through. I don't even really stir it that much. That is it, people. Then you've got your saucepan that you greased with either butter, or you could take one of those spray oils and spray it around. You want to make sure you do that because it's going to make it come out better. And then you just pour it in. So I'm using my spatula just to get all of the goodies out. That's what it looks like. This is going in the oven at 350 for about an hour, depending on your oven. We are gonna have some really yummy dessert coming up soon. There's nothing better than getting a beautiful smelling thing out of the oven that you baked yourself. I'm gonna test it with my little stick here. It comes out clean, so it's not too sticky. It looks beautiful. It's sort of doing a bouncing back thing on the top. I want to let this rest for about 10 minutes in the pan like this. I let this cool down just a little bit, and I'm going to go around the edges of it with a knife. It seems like it is going to pop out well. Greasing it with the butter was a good idea. This is what it looks like when it pops out of the oven. I want to be careful because I often forget that these pans have been in the oven, but this should be able to just flip right out. And there you go. And it looks like a nice little cake. So we're gonna let that cool, and then we're gonna come back and ice the top of it. While our banana bread is cooling, we're gonna go ahead and make a bourbon icing. You're gonna take a half a cup of powdered sugar. I've already measured this, but it's 2 teaspoons of bourbon and 2 teaspoons of milk or cream. I'm gonna go ahead and use almond milk here, and I really love this almond milk. I know I mentioned the secret sugars that can be hidden in peanut butter and yogurt, but also some of these almond milks and the different kind of nut milks that we've got going on now that are so popular, they often can have a lot of hidden ingredients, and this almond milk is just water and almonds, so I really like that. Take my little whisk and then just mix that up. And believe it or not, sometimes people think when they're making sweet things they don't need salt, but I think everything is a little better with even just a tiny pinch of salt. So I'm gonna add a pinch of salt into my powdered sugar, bourbon, almond milk. icing. That's gonna be lovely across the top of our banana bread. So the banana bread has had a chance to cool down. It looks really pretty. And honestly, I would just eat it like this. I would slice it up and serve it to my friends and serve it to myself. Fun thing about when it comes out like this out of the saucepan is you can cut it, you know, like a cake, but you can still cut it like a more traditional banana bread. You can just cut it straight across in pieces, whatever you like. Just for fun, I decided to put that icing in a piping bag, and I thought it would be fun to just do a little decoration. You don't have to have a piping bag. You don't have to use icing. You don't have to use bourbon icing. It was half a cup of powdered sugar, 2 teaspoons of almond milk, 2 teaspoons of bourbon. So it's very bourbon forward, which I think will be a nice balance on the banana bread. If you don't like bourbon, you could do no icing. You could do maple as a flavor, like maple syrup. But basically you're looking at a cup of powdered sugar to about 3 teaspoons of a milk or a cream or water, and then a couple teaspoons of some sort of flavoring, and that should blend up into a nice consistency. So I'm just gonna go across the top, just sort of dripping off the sides until I'm done with all of the icing. And that's it. And now we're gonna cut that up. I'm gonna try to cut this like a cake. Little piece of cake. Oh wow, that looks really good. I know so many of you were saying you wanted close-ups of the food. So there is your close-up of the food. You know me, I love to eat at the end of these videos. Wow. I will say that too. I will say wow. But it's really moist. Very banana-y, very moist. That's really good. Okay, good luck with it, making it on your own. I want to hear how your banana bread turned out. And don't forget, there's some variations you could do. You could add nuts. You could do a different frosting. But I want to hear how yours turned out and if you liked it or not. And if you like this video, subscribe to my channel and tell your friends to come join me in my kitchen.